Why we're going to count down our top 3 movie twists.
Yes.
Okay, so we should probably warn again. Obviously, this top 3 is going to be very, very spoiler-filled.
Spoilerific.
We'll introduce each film and then we'll probably talk in detail about said twist. So you'll have to skip ahead if you don't want to hear about any of the particular twists coming up.
Good.
Okay, so what is your number 3?
Okay, my number 3 is The Others.
Children, if you're dead, why do you remain in this house?
We're not dead.
Why do you remain in this
We're not
house?
dead. We're not dead. We're not dead. We're not dead. We're not
Why
dead.
do you remain in this house?
Nice.
Yes.
Now, can I just say, I
Yeah.
know I'm a horror fan,
Yeah.
but do you not think the horror genre has some of the best movie twists?
Yes, I would
It
agree.
really
And
does.
actually, I would argue that I have 2, if not maybe 3,
Yeah.
in my top
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
so The Others.
The Others. So if you haven't seen the film, Nicole Kidman is basically the mother of these 2 children, and they're being haunted by these beings in their house, these spirits. They don't know where they're coming from. They can hear voices. They see people. They're waiting. It's kind of set during World War II. They're waiting for the dad to come home from the war.
Yeah.
And now the big twist is... Dun dun dun! Nicole Kidman and her 2 children are actually dead.
Yes.
Because she killed them in a sort of fit of insanity and doesn't remember doing it. And they are, in fact, the ghosts. They are the ones that are haunting the family
Yeah.
who live there now.
It's just such a brilliantly simple twist.
It's kind of like, the Sixth... Oh, God, please don't tell me you've got the Sixth Sense.
No!
Okay, good.
And this is so much better.
It's so much better, but in terms of the simplicity of the... Bruce Willis was a ghost. It's like Nicole Kidman was a ghost, but no one saw that coming.
No, and also it works better because it just flips the story around. It goes, okay, so this family are being haunted, but actually they're the ones haunting it.
Yeah, but
And it's
because
just
they
so
don't know
perfect.
it.
No,
and I
they
think
don't
that's
know
the
it.
brilliance of it.
And so they're running around closing all the curtains because they're afraid of the light. Meanwhile, these poor people who are for
These
real being
normal people,
haunted are going,
yeah.
oh my God, I've got these ghosts that keep closing and making the house pitch black, and they keep opening the curtains, and it's just so brilliant.
And it's
'cause
like
so
Nicole
simple.
Kidman thinks that these ghosts are trying to kill her children. She thinks they can't see
Yeah.
the light.
Yeah.
But it's because...
But of course, that's all wrong anyway.
That's all rubbish.
Yeah, it's just so simple but brilliant. And I think it came out the same year as The Sixth Sense. And the
Yeah,
Sixth
2001.
Sense, the Sixth Sense. Oh, okay, so not. It came out a little bit after Sixth Sense then, but I think it even then was kind of overshadowed, and I just don't think it became as big a deal as it should have done, The Others, when actually I think it's an incredible film in every respect. I think it's
and I think
so
Nicole
well written, so well
Kidman is actually
performed.
one of
Yeah.
it's one of her best performances.
Yeah, just
but there's that
totally makes
one
sense.
shocking, terrifying moment where she goes to turn her little girl around, and she's got the face of this old woman.
Yeah. it's so
And
brilliant.
everyone shat themselves at that moment.
Because
and
that's
actually, this
actually-
woman is the seer.
It's
This
so
woman
brilliant,
is
because it's a medium doing
Yes,
a séance.
yeah.
And we see it so many times from other films' point of view where the woman will suddenly inhabit the ghost and go and become the ghost. And this time we're seeing it from the ghost point of view.
Yeah.
So this innocent little girl becomes this old woman, and it's so brilliant because it's just flipped it the other
it's
way
so
around.
clever.
Yeah.
And it's got so many layers. And
Yeah.
just talking about it makes me want to see it again because I haven't seen it in about 20 years.
Yeah, it's so good.
That can't be true. 15. Yes. So go and see The Others if you haven't seen it yet.
Good pick. Good pick.
What is your number 3?
My number 3 it's a little bit less highbrow than The Others, but it is another horror. It is Saw.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Mr. Hindle. Or as they called you around the hospital. Zap. I want you to make a choice.
I am not a fan of the Saw franchise after the first one. I think there were 7 of them altogether, and they are all the
Are they still
sequels.
going?
No, they're not still going, although they might apparently be rebooting it, of course. But
Here is my one confession. I have never seen a Saw movie in my life.
It's amazing that you've managed to just avoid them,
I
because they
know.
seem to be they were everywhere for a period of about 10 years.
Yeah, my brother kept trying to make me watch them,
Yeah.
and I just refused because I know what his taste in films is like, and
Yeah.
it's terrifying.
Well,
like yours, actually.
Well, I'm more of a fan of the kind of scaled down smart horror films than I am of these types of horror films.
Right.
But Saw was actually a film with brains, and I think everyone's forgotten that now because of the legacy it left behind of torture porn. The first one was a very simple story of these two guys in a room chained up, and they have 12 hours to get out, and it almost is like a play, and they're trying to figure out these kind of puzzles and riddles and find their way out, and there's also this dead body in the middle of them, and they're being talked and they're being watched on cameras by obviously this person who we believe to be the killer, and then there's also flashbacks, you know, throughout the story that explain kind of how they got there, and also kind of tells you the backstory of this killer and the detective trying to catch him and stuff. And so that the whole film kind of pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle, and there are so many questions left unanswered and bits that don't quite add up until the very end, and it all just comes just so perfectly together at the end. And this guy who we believe to have been the killer the whole time turns out not to be. Then all of a sudden in the background, this guy, this dead body who you just take for granted was there the entire way through, that was never really explained but you've forgotten all about, just gets up, and this dead guy was there the whole time in the room with them, watching their every move and anticipating what they were going to do next, because he was there listening the entire time. It's just so perfectly done. I haven't really done it justice by explaining it, but when you watch it, it all just comes together and works so well. And it's just so, again, it's like the others because it's just so simple. It's like, of course, why didn't I see that coming? And it doesn't try to be really overcomplicated and go, well, this happened and this happened and this happened because this guy did this. It just sort of said, yep, these two guys in the room, and the guy that was doing it was the one in there with them, and that's why this has all happened, sort of thing.
That's very clever. It's very
really,
simple.
really lovely. And it was just ruined by all the sequels, sadly. Because then they did, each sequel tried to up the twist each time.
Okay.
And so each one had this like reveal at the end, but they were more and more complicated, where it's like, hang on, what? And it turns out one of them is actually all set before the first one, and then another one, it turns out it's actually set in the future, and that's why this has happened, and like various other things where they try and surprise you, and you're going, no, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, this one of my all-time favourite twists and an underrated film.
Nice.
Okay.
Good. I like it. Now, my number 2 is a film that you actually introduced me to, and I only saw for the first time fairly recently.
Yeah.
And this is The Orphanage.
That is my number 2
No
as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Of course.
Of course
Wow,
it
I'm
is.
surprised that we crossed over on this. 'Cause
Yes, I'm
I've got such a
surprised.
horror-filled list. I thought there's no way.
I thought you'd have so many other worse ones.
Yeah.
And The Orphanage again is a horror film like the others in that I could watch it. You know, like it wasn't like one of those horrific.
But it is one of the scariest films ever.
Yes, and it's psychologically, it's one of the most upsetting horrors I've ever seen, and it stayed with me for so long. The twist stayed with me for so long.
So The Orphanage is basically, it is very similar to the others in that it's kind of that kind of classic gothic ghost tale story, but kind of with a bit of a twist, obviously. This mother moves to this house. It's actually the house where she grew up. It used to be a boarding school. Now it's just an empty house. She moves there with her child and her husband, hoping to actually reopen it as a kind of foster care home or a kind of school for special needs children, essentially. But tragedy happens within the first week of her being there. She loses her little boy. Her little boy runs off. We don't know what happened to him, and he's never found again. And they live right near a beach, and we don't know whether he might have drowned, whether he was kidnapped. And essentially the whole film is then her trying to find her little boy, and it's really sad and tragic.
It's incredibly, it's so sad and so memorable. And
because the boy is medicated, he's HIV positive, and he's quite heavily medicated. He has to take constant medication. They kind of start to accept that after a week or two of being missing, he basically can't be alive for much longer. Like they essentially have to let go and accept that he's dead. Except that she, as a mother, cannot let go, and it's essentially then she starts to believe that maybe there are spirits in this house, whether it's the spirit of her son or it's the spirit of other children from this school from back in the day. And it turns into this kind of ghost story, except that we don't know whether it's psychological, we don't know whether it's all from the point of view of a grieving mother, or whether there are really ghosts, and she's hearing noises in the night, and there's creepy, there's banging on the walls from downstairs, and there's, pitter-patter of footsteps running around, and all this kind of thing. So it's got all those kind of horror film tropes, and you just think, okay, it's a ghost story. But probably the most tragic twist of all time is that she discovers at the very end there's a secret room that's around the back of a cupboard. She goes down into this basement and finds the dead body of her son, and all that happened is the boy locked himself in that cellar.
No, she locked him in that cellar.
She locked him in. Okay, yeah. He ran in there and
he ran in there to kind of, he was hiding from her.
Yeah.
And he
loved to play games. He loved to play hide and seek, and he used to leave trails and treasure trails for her to come and find him and stuff. Yeah.
And but at that point he was angry with her and also a bit scared. They'd had a sort of row, and he was acting up. Went to hide, and actually she ended up accidentally locking him in this cupboard.
Yeah.
And the banging that she had been hearing, thinking it was the spirits of all these dead children, her friends probably from back in the day, actually was her son banging, trying to get out.
Yeah, this whole time there were search parties, there were police, there were helicopters, and all that time he was in the cellar banging on the walls, desperately trying to get out.
And then actually
dying.
he falls and breaks his neck. He falls off these stairs and breaks his neck, and that is.
It's
God! It just kills you.
It's just so brilliant,
upsetting.
and then it ends with her kind of going up to the room and taking a bunch of pills, and then seeing all these spirits of these children around her.
So the whole reason,
and again, it's like, is it psychological or is it supernatural? It's just so beautiful because you can kind of make up your mind either way about it.
Anyway, so that's both of our number twos.
That is both of our number twos. Okay, so what's your number one?
My number one is 7.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Put the gun down.
I saw you with the box. What was in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
Oh, what's in the box?
Not till you give me the
What's
gun.
in the fucking box?
Give me the gun. He just told you.
You lie! You're a fucking liar! Shut up!
That's what he wants. He wants you to shoot him.
We've talked about 7 before on the podcast, I think, and 7, I think, has got an excellent twist in that Brad Pitt's wife dies and her head gets cut off, and then Brad Pitt himself becomes the sort of 7th sin.
Yes, and he kills Kevin Spacey, but it's all part of his plan to kind of bring the thing to a close.
Exactly, and I just thought that was so clever and so excellent, and again stayed with me because the whole film is building up to this, but you never really see it coming. You're waiting to find out, and each one gets more and more gruesome. And actually, as the film, you're like, well, this film is tailing off a little bit now. It feels like it should be ending, but we've only had 5 sins. We've still got 2 left, and then suddenly envy.
Yeah.
Which is Kevin Spacey's character envies the life of this policeman whose wife has got she's pregnant.
Yeah.
It's like everything wonderful is happening for him. He's got a great new job, and he is envious of that life, and so murders the wife, and then like you say, writes himself into the 7th sin, which is wrath.
Where there's never a moment where he is not in control. Kevin Spacey.
He's always right.
He
from
gets
beginning
arrested,
to end.
and that's because he walks in and puts his hands up and says, "I did it."
Yeah.
And you kind of think, "Oh, that's it." And then he's the one that makes everything happen, and even his surrender and even his death ultimately is all his doing. And it's just his plan comes together perfectly. He wins essentially at the end. Really bleak.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
And again, the realism, but not.
Yeah.
But the realism of it is heartbreaking, and about the fact that Gwyneth Paltrow's character is pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's it now. This guy will never again have a perfect life. Okay, what is your number one?
Okay, my number one is Old Boy.
I was so debated putting this in.
Yes. Old Boy is one of my all-time favourites. In fact, it very nearly made it into my top 10 and then it got pushed out. But,
what pushed it out?
Battle Royale. Old Boy for me absolutely was like a sucker punch when that ending hit. I just thought, oh my fucking god, just so perfect and so brutal. So I'm talking about the original Park Chan-wook one, obviously, not the Spike Lee one. But yes,
not Josh Brolin.
Yes, obviously. The story is he gets locked in a cell for 15 years. He doesn't really know why, and then all of a sudden he gets set free, and he doesn't know why. Why is he imprisoned, and why is he let go? And then the rest of the film is him trying to figure it out and try and get revenge on the man that did this to him. And he meets this random woman who helps him, who he kind of takes an instant liking to, and he doesn't quite know why, and he's quite attracted to her. She helps him kind of solve this crime, and they go through all this stuff together, all these vendettas, kind of uncovering these backstories, this past, this character's past, piecing it all together. Him and this girl, they develop a romance, they sleep with each other, they kind of fall in love with each other, and then at the very end it all kind of comes to a head when he discovers there's this beautiful moment when the bad guy goes, right, aren't you wondering why I imprisoned you for 15 years and then let you out, and I didn't just kill you. And he suddenly is given this box. It's this purple box with a bow around it. He opens it, and there's a photo album.
It's sounding like Seven.
Yes, and he opens the photo album, and it starts off with pictures of him and of the main guy and a baby, of Old Boy and his baby who he believes to be dead. And then as he starts turning the pages, the little girl starts getting older and older, and suddenly her face starts to look slightly more familiar, and it's kind of each page is another year, and it's this sudden realization of, oh my fucking god, it's the main woman that he's been sleeping with. And then suddenly these photos change to kind of security camera photos of those two together, and then pictures of those two sleeping together, and it's so disturbing and just so brilliant. And obviously the whole story is to do with incest anyway, and the reason why he was in prison was because he had started a rumor or spread this news about this guy who was having sex with his sister at school, and this guy is getting revenge on him by making him have sex with his daughter. So it's all like, it all comes perfectly together and it all makes sense, and
like
it is
the
such an
ultimate
obvious
long
twist.
game,
yeah,
isn't it? It's the fact that
yeah, it's just such a brilliant mind fuck.
It's come from such a disturbed mind as well. I like it. Good.